And we're live.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Sunday evening special episode and bringing you live to District 3, DeKalb County family. I'm Commissioner Larry Johnson. You're going to meet some great candidates tonight who want to talk about issues that impact us, from the transportation, housing, to the environment, to our young people, to our seniors, everybody in between. And I'm just so happy to be the host tonight. And I wanted to make sure that District 3 in DeKalb County, that we get included on the discussion for Congressional District 5. That's the seat held by our esteemed and legendary Congressman John Lewis. I had the opportunity to work with him when the District 5 moved in, when they redistricted and moved into our area. District 3 is 150,000 residents. We go from Eastlake, Edgewood, Kirkwood, all the way to the line, to Ellenwood, Georgia, the Henry County, Clayton County line, over to Wesley Chapel, Memorial Drive, Covington Highway. So I got some of the best high schools in the country: Southwest DeKalb, Columbia High School, McNair, Towers High School, Columbia is a great job, and also Cedar Grove High School. And so this is what we are about. And the goal is to make sure that our district understands what the candidates, where they're coming from. A couple of questions I received from residents to ask, because I want to make sure when this seat is filled, that anybody who wins, they come back here and they got to do a town hall with me so we can keep connected to the residents of DeKalb and District 3. And so we're going to be enthralled. So this is not just an Atlanta congressional seat. It goes all the way over to Clayton County, DeKalb. And so it reaches a whole diverse group, from the world's busiest airport to some of the most distinguished universities, and just a very diverse group of people. But before we start, I always got to kick off, since I'm the chair for the Complete Count Committee in DeKalb for the census. Please, 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 we're 10 days out, 10 days from the last day of the census. We're going to end with on September 30th. We're having a Census Night live show. I got Sasha the Diva going to co-host with me, and we're going to have entertainment from all over DeKalb County to talk about why it's important for it to do our census. As you've seen on the news last week, I had 10 families who by armed guards were kicked out of their extended stay homes, and we had to find a place for them to live. It was just tragedy and how they were treated. And we found a place. We got New Life Baptist Church. The pastor Marlon Harris helped me. We were able to find places for those families, some food, and to really do it. But guess what? The census helped pay for that. We have money that our CEO, Michael Thurman, put aside. We had $125 million called CARES money that was based on your population. And you get your population count based on the census. And we set aside about $2.7 million for evictions and helping with rental assistance. And guess what? We were able to use some of that funding to make sure that families had a place to go and food to make things happen. So please, you all, mycensus.gov, fill it out. DeKalb County has reached a major milestone that you will not hear on TV. We have exceeded our response rate for 2010 in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of all of these things going on. DeKalb County, one of the most urbanized counties in the state of Georgia, we have exceeded our response rate for 2010. So I want to thank you all. You see, I got on my shirt that we designed, Get in Good Trouble. And we was over at St. Philip's AME Church yesterday, where they unveiled the largest Black Lives Matter sign probably in the state so far. And with Pastor Watley and what he's doing, we were on the street. And then we did a census caravan, went around South DeKalb, and we'll be doing another caravan next week. We're going to be at South DeKalb Mall. I'm going to be giving away 500 book bags, school supplies, and we're going to feed about 400 to 500 families right in the parking lot. So open up your trunk, come on by. I'm going to work with Choices. It's my Let's Move campaign that I started a couple of years ago. And we're going to have a caravan also going up in the north side of DeKalb, from Dunwoody, Dorville, Brookhaven, because we have to reach everybody, as it makes a difference in DeKalb around our census. So please, you all, 10 minutes, 10 questions, very simple, very easy. Of course, we have here the elections that we're talking about tonight are going on right now. You can vote at the gallery of South DeKalb Mall, which is in the heart of my district. Please, or Memorial Drive off 285. But we got to also get ready for the big one. The other election that's coming up is November 3rd. Early voting will start on October 12th. I'm also the chair of the operations committee for the county, and so I'm over the elections for DeKalb County. So we get more drop boxes. I'm working on extending the hours of the election because we have to make sure that every vote counted. And of course, you know, we're in the flu season and COVID. So my job is to tell you to vote early. Absentee or go to early voting because November 3rd, anything can happen, and we want to make sure everybody is counted in our community, make things happen. So please, 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 please get your application if you want to vote early, but also look at our early voting sites because we want you to vote in DeKalb so you can make a difference. So that's my little commercial around what I want to tell you around the census and voting. But now we're going to get to why we are here tonight. And I want our candidates who are here, and they'll introduce themselves when they have an opening statement they can make. And we're going to have a little timer, candidates. And it's going to sound off 1 minute mark when it's time to wrap up your comments. I just want to just introduce everybody by name. We got candidate Robert Franklin. Wave your hand. We got candidate Kwanzaa Hall. Wave your hand. He got his model shot up there. Come on off there. Come on, Mr. Kwanzaa. Got candidate Barrington Martin. Candidate Steve Muhammad. Candidate Chase Oliver.
Hello.
Candidate Abel Mabel Thomas. And candidate Keisha Waits. I want to say hello and welcome everybody. How y'all doing?
Doing fine, sir.
Great. Thank you for having us.
Happy to be in your presence this evening.
Bless you all. Glad you all can be a part. So we're going to start in alphabetical order, and I'm going to give each candidate 3 minutes to talk about who you are, some of the issues that you see in DeKalb that we need to focus on. And at the 1 minute buzzer, we're going to have a 1 minute timer that's come in and say you got 1 minute left. So we're going to start with candidate Robert Franklin. Hello, sir, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Brother Johnson. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and it's an honor to be with my fellow candidates. We are becoming something of a surrogate family. We are part of John Lewis's team, and I think he must be proud to have such a diverse group of talent. And as many of us have said, as we've come to develop a great knowledge of each other and respect for each other, that we will comport ourselves with a dignity that is deserving of John Lewis's seat. My name is Robert Franklin. I've been a 30-year resident of the 5th District, and I approach this seat and this opportunity respectfully, aware that a legend and a great American patriot held this seat. I believe that all of us are qualified to hold the seat. And I do believe that we have an obligation to present ourselves and introduce ourselves, as you said, Brother Johnson, in a way that the people can decide which leader they wish to send to Washington. I will say this, that if you select me on September 29th, as the voting between now and September 25th, early voting, and then of course the last day, the election day on September 29th, I will immediately go to Washington to represent the 790,000 people of the 5th District. I will hold Donald Trump accountable. I will protect our sacred voting rights. I will provide and argue for the mobilization of COVID stimulus checks to help people who are struggling to house and feed their families. And I will strengthen hate crimes legislation. As a minister, as the former president of Morehouse College, as a community activist, as an educator, and as an advisor to 3 US presidents, I am more than qualified to do what must be done for the 5th District until January. I do seek your vote because the people of the 5th District currently do not have a voice, do not have a vote. My other colleagues will have been emphasizing this is taxation without representation. And I work at Emory University now, so I work in DeKalb County. I have great affection for DeKalb County. At the end of the day, this is the proposition. You have 7 candidates. You are interviewing us for a job. I believe the leaders must master the context. They must manage expectations. They have to cast a vision. Congress is a bit like a shopping mall, and there are a lot of big egos in Congress. There are a lot of busy people. And if you arrive without a portfolio, without stature and gravitas, without a sense of presence and voice, they will walk past you and keep going. But I believe that I have what it takes to get the attention, and my voice, a moral voice, will be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, now we'll move to candidate Kwanzaa Hall.
Good evening, and thank you, Commissioner Johnson, for having me. I'm
You're
a
welcome.
49-year resident of District 5. I was born and raised in Adamsville and Southwest Atlanta at Southwest Hospital. It's called Holy Family. The Black doctors ran this hospital. And I'm running for Congress to finish the rest of John Lewis's last year in office. He was a neighbor and dear friend to me and my family. He and his late wife, Lillian Lewis, mentored me in high school, college, and throughout my 15 years as an elected official on the Atlanta City Council and on the Atlanta School Board. So for me, serving the remainder of his term in Congress is not an opportunity to start building a political resume or to place a capstone on the end of my career. This is my personal obligation to continue the justice leadership in the 5th Congressional District, started by Ambassador Andrew Young and continued by Congressman John Lewis. I'm running to inspire the next generation of warriors for justice in the city of Atlanta, Fulton, Clayton, and DeKalb counties. I'm asking that everyone vote early today so that we can win this election on the 29th outright, because we need leadership immediately. We're without representation. I will fight for COVID relief and solutions to this pandemic. I'm a survivor. And when I was not planning to go back into office, God got my attention and said he had an assignment for me. And this assignment was to run for this office and to win it and to ably serve for the 60 or 90 days with a solid plan, not to be caught up in being in politics, as I've already done all the lobbyist dinners, and I'm not impressed by the bright lights and the hallways. And I've been around Congress. Like I said, I've been mentored by Congressman Lewis, and he and Lillian would invite me down to the Congressional Black Caucus. But I'm really running to bridge the gap, to stand between the legacy of the civil rights generation and the next generation of justice warriors who are younger, who need direction and leadership. And we have to pass this baton. It's been passed to Nikema Williams. She is the Democratic nominee. And I just have to say again, none of us are running against her in this race. We're running to represent for just a short period of time. I will also stand up to Donald Trump. We have been manipulated, and we've got to ensure that voter suppression does not continue in our country. We need justice reform, as I've done as a council member on Atlanta City Council, with body cameras, decriminalization of possession of less than an ounce of marijuana, abandon the box on felon reentry, removal of the code of ordinances related to quality of life crimes that have put majority of minorities, especially Black men and women in Atlanta, behind bars and really ruin our careers and our lives. We had to remove that, but we were in an all-Black city. And the same is true that I will do as a congressperson. So again, thank you, Commissioner, for having me today. Thank you to the residents of your district for hearing us out. And I'm asking for your vote and your support to win this election on the 29th, because I believe I'm the right person to stand in the gap, bridge the gap between the civil rights generation and the next generation of justice warriors. I'm Kwanzaa Hall. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, our next candidate is Barrington Martin, the third or the second?
The second, Commissioner Johnson.
Right.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Everyone says that because they feel that it sounds better, but it's all right. Thank you for this opportunity, Commissioner Johnson. Hello, everyone. My name is Barrington Martin II, and I'm here to provide modern-day solutions to modern-day problems. I'm not here to reinvent the wheel, but to simply revolutionize the wheel. We're at the forefront of political renaissance in which the people deserve more, and it's time for our government to finally deliver. We've been going the same direction for years. That's led us nowhere. and it's simply time for a new direction. Being born and raised from the district is my home that I love dearly. Therefore, it is my obligation to ensure that the people of this district are secure in the future and that the elders are well taken care of. I am a direct product of Cedar Grove Middle School. I am a direct product of Cedar Grove High School class of 2006, Go Saints. I'm a special needs educator at McNair Middle School. This is why it is important and imperative for someone like me to represent the district, my district. It takes a person with courage like me to represent the district. Dr. King had a dream for this nation. He had it etched within his blueprints for his economic Bill of Rights and his social revolution that he wanted us all to endure. Taking the blueprint that he left us to new heights, that's my obligation, and that's my self-expectation. This is why I created a platform entitled The People's Bailout, because it's time for the people to feel empowered, and it's time for the people to possess a true sense of equity through freedom and equality. 20,096 people possess a true, 20,096 people were confident in me enough to give me their vote in this year's primary, and I hope I make you all a believer as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Next speaker, candidate Stephen Muhammad.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
You're welcome, sir.
I'm running to seek the office of Congressman for the 5th District of Georgia in Atlanta, covering DeKalb, Clayton, Fulton counties. Now, I want to quote one of the greatest living Americans who've come from among us, Dr. Martin Luther King. And he said in his last speech, his last sermon, his last spiritual message at Ebenezer Church, the drum major instinct, you don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. I love this city. I love Atlanta. I love the diversity of this city. I love all that it has to offer. And I love the diversity of DeKalb County, which is the most diverse county in the state of Georgia. The diversity of it, I love, from Buford Highway down to Panola Road. There's a lot going on in DeKalb. You have more different ethnicities in DeKalb than anywhere else. So DeKalb has to be taken care of in a special sort of manner because of its level of diversity. So what I like to do, I'm running on the platform of criminal justice reform and to stop destructive gentrification, to ensure true affordable housing, so we can have job training and entrepreneurship for young people. We can have authentic public engagement. When you have so many diverse people in DeKalb, you gotta have authentic public engagement, because having a one-sided or just a normal black and white conversation won't do. I'm also running to stop lobbyists, corporations, and special interests from running America. We need community leaders, faith leaders, small business leaders, and neighborhood leaders to have a seat at the table. A balanced approach to stop the gridlock. That's why I'm running as an independent. We love this area. I'm going forth with that. So we would love to see a real, true, safe, and decent place to live throughout the 5th District. And we will do that by working hard on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat, to make sure that our voices are heard, creating a new reality for all that live within the 5th District, working to make sure that our voices are heard, that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness becomes a reality for everyone. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. We'll have our next candidate, Chase Oliver.
Hello, thank you, Commissioner Johnson, for having me to this forum to speak to the voters of DeKalb County. My name is Chase Oliver, and I am from outside of the two-party system as well. I'm the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Atlanta, and I'm hoping that this might be the first time many of you have actually gotten to hear from a libertarian and the libertarian point of view. My platform is about more choices and more voices. I feel like our politics are better when we have more choices on the ballot and more voices on our political discourse, because that makes for better debates, that makes for better campaigns, that makes for better candidates, and that makes for better congresspeople. So my platform is rooted in more choices and more voices. We need more choices and more voices in education. The choices we need are schools for our kids to go to that are succeeding and not failing. And the voices we need to be hearing are those from teachers, students, and parents. We need more choices and more voices when we end the wars at home and abroad. And by that, I mean we need to end the wars overseas that we've been fighting for an entire generation. We need to end the wars at home, like the war on drugs. The choices we need there are we need choices to treat addiction as a crisis of medical crisis, not as a law enforcement crisis. And the voices we need are those who are willing to say we need to break down the war on drugs. And we need to defund the police by starting to defund that $40 billion a year in the war on drugs. We need more choices and more voices when it comes to ballot access and voting rights. Oftentimes, 60% of the candidates you see on your state Senate and state assembly ballots in November will be running unopposed, and they represent 80% of the population. We need more choices on our ballot to hold our elected officials accountable. We also need to ensure voting rights for everyone in all 50 states. And if elected, I would fight to amend the Voting Rights Act to a 50 states Voting Rights Act so we can fight voter disenfranchisement all over this country. We need more choices and more voices when it comes to things like criminal justice reform, a main thrust of my campaign. I will be the one that says we need to end qualified immunity for law enforcement. There's been a bill in the United States House of Representatives for 106 days that hasn't gotten a committee hearing, and it hasn't gotten taken up because the leadership doesn't feel like that's a priority. And I feel like it is a priority to hold law enforcement accountable. I'm also fighting for things like ending cash bail, ending police militarization, and ending no-knock raids that kill people like Breonna Taylor and permanently harm others. Thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking more and hearing more from the other candidates as well.
Thank you, sir. We'll move to our next candidate, Abel Mabel Thomas. Welcome. Ms. Abel Mabel Thomas.
Okay, peace and love, and it's always power to the people. First, giving honor to God. We appreciate the opportunity to serve. But first thing I want to acknowledge is that I want to stand in solidarity with community people all around the country that are remembering the extraordinary life of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her historic career for advocating for the rights of all, but specifically for the equal rights for women. She is a giant. Her work speaks for itself. And I'd like just a moment of silence that from all of us for the great work of to our judge that passed away, Ginsburg. Thank you. What I want to say is thank you for the opportunity to have served as city council person citywide. Also, thank you for the opportunity to continue to serve as state representative District 56. I think that you may know that I'm born and raised in the 5th District, and I still live in the same house I was born and raised in, still on the ground for the people. I'm a neighborhood leader who has courageously served the poor, the working class, and the middle class. I believe that poor people, working class people, middle class people should have the right to control, direct, and have voice in their community. But as you go to the poor and the working class, sometimes they don't even get voice. They push them to the side. Gentrification is taking over. But even as gentrification is taking over, I saw it ahead of time and knew that we need to do something about it. And so at City Council, I led the charge on inclusionary zoning and other things that will help our people. I think I'm the most qualified Democratic legislator in the state at this time, passing the first mandated benefit in the state of Georgia that gave insurance companies mammograms, made them pay for mammograms, pap smear, and the prostate cancer test. I am one of the 12 mothers of the reproductive justice movement in America, because before June of 1994, there was no such thing as reproductive injustice. Thereby, at the age of 36, I coined something that did not exist in the world before it. I believe the CAP is a very diverse area, and I can't help but keep seeing on the TV constantly spills, environmental spills that's happening in that area. So definitely I'm interested in environment and serve on the environmental committee at the state level. All throughout 65, we need better roads and better transportation plans. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next candidate is Keisha Waits. Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner. I am no stranger to DeKalb County. Again, my name is Keisha Waits, and thank you again to the host and to the organizers for the opportunity to be before you. So I'm no stranger to DeKalb County. I'm a lifelong 47-year resident of the 5th District, which I do live in the Fulton County portion. But I actually started my high school career over at Towers High School, where I ran track and played basketball under the legendary Loretta Brown, Coach Michael Hall, and Coach Gaines, which are legends in Georgia. But I am a graduate of DeKalb County High School in Atlanta, in the Atlanta portion of DeKalb, which is a National School of Excellence as well as a Georgia School of Excellence. I am a former 3-term state legislator in the Georgia General Assembly, the House of Representatives. For a brief period of time, I actually represented a portion of DeKalb County my freshman year, which is the Cedar Grove and Ellingwood corridors. My family and I have felt the devastating impact of COVID-19. My younger sibling actually was exposed to the virus. And so for us, this was a very difficult and trying time. So I intimately understand the challenges that are facing families with small children, struggling small business owners, families living without health care. And so these are things that I look forward to advocating and championing during this short tenure in Congress. For many of you, I think it's been brought up already, we're talking about a 90-day period of time, 3 months, or a 3-week period of time, which ultimately will be about 30 days. Congress is currently in session voting on issues that impact DeKalb County as well as the 5th District. And so it is necessary that we have representation. As you are aware, we have lost 2 giants in the movement for social equality and social justice. The late Congressman Lewis and now our Supreme Court hero, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and my colleague so eloquently. So I look forward to the conversation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You heard from our candidates. I gave them my opening statement. Now I'm gonna ask them a question about our district, District 3. Our district goes from Eastlake, Edgewood, Kirkwood, and I said it goes to Ellenwood, in between Candler Road, Columbia Drive, McNair. It's 150,000. It's bigger than Rockdale and Newton County put together. And so I've been representing the area for 18 years. It's a strong area, it's blue collar. We have a lot of essential workers. We have 34% of the veterans in the county. We do have an 18% rate of folks who don't even have the internet. I want to mention to you some of the medium incomes at 3032, 3416. These are some of the zip codes that you will be representing. Our medium income in 32 is 38,000. Medium income for 34 is 51,000. Our medium income for 16 is $66,800. And of course, one around Ellenwood area, I'll get to that one as well, is close to about 65,000. So what we need is economic development. We're close to the world's busiest airport. 285 and 675 have I-20, and a portion of 285 is in our area. And so we have the second largest trucking company in the world in our district, Snyder. We have a movie studio, Black Hawk Studios, done some of the big movies like Black Panther, Spider-Man. We also have great schools. I mentioned Cedar Grove is doing a great job. Southwest DeKalb, Columbia High School, McNair. But the goal is, how do we, as a candidate, and you get 2 minutes each, how can you bring, as your role in Congress, what will be one of the economic development projects or things that you can do and you think is needed in our district? And since we started at the top, I'll start at the bottom this time with candidate Keisha Waits, and you get 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. So this is one of the reasons why I think it's necessary that the congressman's successor have some form of legislative experience, given the short turnaround involved. So Larry, the reality is we may not be able to drop any legislation that is there, but however, there is existing legislation that is currently moving. They are in the process of making some changes to the current CARES Act. This is the COVID relief that we see in front of us. Many of our small business owners right here in our backyard did not get any of those benefits for different reasons, compliance, various guidelines, ineligibility, who knows. But nonetheless, it is imperative that we ensure that our constituents get resources and information. And one of the things that I have found, having served in 3 federal agencies, is people have a lack of access to information. So one of the things that I like to do is to support our struggling small business owners is to create an opportunity, a one-stop shop where they can come in, one, to see what their eligibility is. And if they don't have the capacity to apply for these loans, for example, they may not have a P&L statement. They may not have any bank records. And so I think it's imperative that we get them the support that they need so that they don't have to jump through a number of hoops. So that's 1. 2, a number of families are facing evictions and foreclosures. And unfortunately, $1,200 as a supplement just is not going to cut it for the average family. So I'd like to see some of those resources be directed to these working families versus big box businesses, airports, airlines, and so forth, in addition to Ivy League colleges. My other colleague highlighted the fact that we're looking at building a new FBI facility. So certainly, I think it's necessary that we direct our resources toward our most precious commodities, and that is our working families and residents of the 5th District. Thank you.
Thank you. Mabel, Thomas?
Hey, I too think that small businesses have not been represented at the level they need to, and many of them have closed, like many of them throughout the District 5. You will have to be able to make a priority, and you really may not even have to start when you get there. You can start right now dealing with the issue of making sure, going through your relationships I have through Maxine Waters, Congressman Maxine Waters, who's over the Financial Service Committee, and to be able to see whether or not in their debate, even before we get there, that we can make sure that small businesses get funding. We should also put veterans on our radar, because no matter what people talk about, the reality of it is veterans have never gotten their fair share. And the information is information flowing from the federal government down to the state, to the local, has to happen. And it probably necessary, I wouldn't go for a one-stop shop, but I would make sure that on the website, there's a place for people to access information and go directly to it, and they can work through my office once I get in. Also, when I think about the CAB, and every other places, there's a disparity in economic development as far as money that goes into schools on the south side of DeKalb. They always have something lacking in terms of that. I think that the movie industry is not as big as it is in Fulton, but I think that there's still grounds and a time for development in that area. I did the disparity study on that, and we clearly know that in that industry, they get the average salary is about $84,000 a year. So therefore, this is an industry we cannot have like it is. It has to have more diversity and inclusion in that industry so that we can all benefit from those dynamic movies like Black Panther and others. I also know that that DeKalb is high voters. I'll just tell you, high voters. I think y'all do have some level of confidence in y'all area, but I do think it's clearly time for us to have a DeKalb County strong, Fulton County strong, Clayton County strong. So thank you very much. And I did also represent a small part of DeKalb as serving the city council citywide.
Thank you. Glad you acknowledged that my district voted about 85, 86%. So we strong. I got 81%, so I know we got it. So I'm gonna go to Mr. Chase Oliver, Economic Development.
So I wanted to piggyback on a few of the things that the other speakers have already spoken about, particularly about the CARES Act, about how we need help during this time of COVID for economic development to just keep people in their homes and to keep businesses going. And the real question is why does the CARES Act, why were so many small businesses ignored? Why is it so difficult for people to get their loans and get through these things? And the truth is it's the cumbersome red tape of government. It's a very complicated program to do. And what we should be doing is, instead of picking winners and losers, as the government has done by giving money to the Pentagon and to other big box and big corporations, we should just say that the next CARES Act should be direct financial assistance to every American. Just give everyone a check. Everyone can pay their rent, they can buy food for their family, they can continue to fund their business, and they can keep our economy going during this pandemic emergency. That's why I, along with the other libertarian in Congress, Justin Amash, have said, let's end the government red tape, the picking of winners and losers, and just give every American back a check during this time of crisis so that we can keep our economy afloat, keep people in their jobs, keep people in their homes, keep the kids fed, and keep things going during this emergency. That is what we need. This is an emergency, and desperate times call for things that need to be done, and namely, give the people their money back. give the people their tax money back and let just people go about their lives. Let's give everyone a check and do that. In terms of, I heard Mabel Thomas speaking about veterans. I want to highlight the fact that 22 veterans a day kill themselves. It's a massive suicide epidemic that's been going on for years and years and years since the war on terror has begun. That's an entirely different pandemic that we need to be worrying about, and we need to be taking care of our veterans when they get home. And that requires that we give them quality health care. That requires reforming the VA. And economic development, we have a VA hospital right here in DeKalb County that if we invested in it and reformed it, we could create jobs and create a better health outcomes for all of our veterans. It's just those priorities that need to be happening. We need to have voices in Washington that are willing to challenge the party establishment and say, these are the priorities we need to be taking and not your priorities. We need to be working for the 5th District, not for the Congress. We need to be working for our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Candidate Stephen Muhammad. Stephen Muhammad.
Stephen Muhammad, yes, sir. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What I would do for economic development, well, I would work to strengthen Black Hawk Studios, which is put out some great films, and to make it and give it the same attention. And I heard they were trying to be involved with the county with a land swap and make sure that they could grow, because it creates jobs in that industry, which is one of the growing industries within the state of Georgia. Also, just small business. I would like to, and definitely work with you on a group of young men that would like to open up a restaurant in DeKalb Mall, South DeKalb Mall, where the U-Bar is. That would create 16 jobs immediately. So talking to Amy Kennedy, the leasing agent out there. So I would definitely like to talk with you about that situation, because that's immediate work for young people in DeKalb. So these are the things I would go to, immediate things. Small business, as I said, small business is my concern, because corporations gonna get what they're supposed to get anyway. But small business, to go down that Cantler Road corridor and make sure that those small businesses can get business loans, that I can go to Washington, D.C. and create HR 7903 to make sure that there's a reform in the Small Business Act of 2011 to make sure that the money gets to small businesses who need it, so that all along that corridor, it can be like it was when I first came to Atlanta. That was a sparkling, sterling quarter along South Cantler Road, but now it's sort of fallen on hard times, even though they're doing some building out there with senior homes and things. But I still would like to work on building up the small businesses, the small restaurants along flat shores, and small dry cleaners and service stations and those sort of things. And I have several that I would like to get on immediately in South DeKalb, if that was possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Candidate Barrington Martin, II.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. Well, as I stated from the beginning, modern day solutions to modern day problems. One of the modern day solutions to the mainly economic issues that we see, especially within low poverty areas, would be universal guaranteed income. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. advocated for universal guaranteed income, and he believed that it was a real starting line for disenfranchised Americans. He felt that it would be a great starting point for low and middle class Americans, in which that they can be active contributors, to a capitalistic economy. And that's what we have to come to terms with, that we do live in a capitalistic economy. 720,000 manufacturing jobs have been lost since the beginning of COVID. 23% of US jobs will be impacted by automation by 2030. So it's imperative that we start the rally or the cry for universal guaranteed income. Senator Harris created a bill in which she wanted herself and Senator Sanders, in which they wanted $2,000 to be paid out to every American until the pandemic ended. I say we cut that in half and we start testing universal guaranteed income in specific areas. For example, right now in the Old Fourth Ward is the Old Fourth Ward Economic Task Force, and it's looking at guaranteed income in low poverty areas. Also, another thing that I would want to increase the visibility of is a high-speed rail, similar to the idea that President Obama had within his presidency. With the high-speed rail, it will increase jobs, and I will write legislation that will make the high-speed rail system partner up with Delta, which will automatically increase jobs. It will better the environment through reducing emissions and provide eco-friendly, affordable transportation of all citizens. And so when we look at all the ideologies or all the ideals within the county and everything that's going on within the county. I believe that these two primary initiatives I will increase the voices for within Congress, because it provides direct solutions that will better the lives of all the citizens, not just within this particular place in DeKalb County, but for all members of our nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We go to candidate Kwanzaa Hall.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So understanding that I'll only be elected for 90 days, the voters go out and turn out like I expect them to. It's really not possible to do as many of the lofty things that we might be hearing. I think to focus efforts, I would really pay attention to the SBA, as I've been doing just as a private citizen. When I hear from small business owners who are not able to get their PPP, not able to get the EIDL, not eligible, they're in a class that's not even allowed, sole proprietorships need to be included, because that's the majority of small businesses that for sure are in District 5. Black businesses, Latino businesses, immigrant businesses usually fall in that category when they're starting out. So we've got to create a solution for that. So I would lobby for that. Some direct allocation to add greater relief, because we are in emergency situations for sure. Something else I would fight for. But the biggest thing in terms of economic development, I've got a track record for getting a lot of things done related to economic development when I served as a council member, bringing over almost $3 billion worth of investment over the 15 years, if I count the school board, to District 2 and part of City Council District 1, was being able to direct the money. Money goes where it feels comfortable. And it doesn't go where the prices are cheap. It doesn't go where the land is cheap. It goes where it feels comfortable. So we've got to create an environment that is attractive. What you said, Commissioner, was right on point. All the ingredients exist in District 5. It's right to be a greater logistics corridor. It's right to have all types of new innovation-related jobs, healthcare-related jobs. I want to create the coronavirus COVID innovation zone, where we take the lemons that have been thrown at us in this country and we turn it into lemonade in District 5. And lastly, the infrastructure bank, which is $4 trillion that would be brought back offshore and invested in District 5 as a pilot area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next candidate, Robert Franklin.
Yes, I want to remind us that one of the first obligations of a leader is to manage expectations. A couple of my colleagues have underscored the importance of this point. For a 90-day or a 30-day time in office, what can we realistically do? And this is where I think it's so important to talk about leveraging existing relationships. If you have no relationships, it's difficult to leverage. But if you do have relationships and long-standing trusting relationships, you can leverage those relationships. And as one of my colleagues acknowledged, even more important than long-standing legislative skills, for this brief time when those skills might not be called into play, having relationships, managing expectations will be exceedingly important. There are really three fundamental tasks that will be undertaken in the coming weeks. And I want to transition from that to your important question, Brother Johnson. Number one, appropriations, which is directly related to the economic vitality and future of DeKalb County, which all of us care about. And I have a profound concern for the future of DeKalb. Appropriations, particularly as spending bills are considered and as each member of Congress gets to weigh in on impact of on their own districts and communities. And I'd be a strong voice on behalf of DeKalb County, on behalf of the assets in that community. I've been highlighting those assets, even in my social media, from DeKalb Farmers Market to CDC, to the Centers for Disease Control, to Emory University, and so many, many others. So appropriations. Number two is oversight and accountability. Members who arrive, especially those of us who would be a freshman member and a short-term freshman, will have what's the man on terms of which committees we serve on. But it's to be clear, John Lewis's seat is going to be accorded a certain amount of accommodation, a certain amount of respect because of their love for John Lewis. And if one arrives with relationships, one can place DeKalb County on that agenda to ensure that we move resources forward. But the other and third is speaking into the national crisis. And that has to do with a crisis of leadership, a crisis of confidence, even in the vaccine, because we can't turn DeKalb's economy around until we deal with the crisis of public health. And we're going to have to unleash the CDC, build trust so that vaccine hesitation among Black and brown people is firmly addressed. I would love on my day one to convene key philanthropic leaders. I'm a former Ford Foundation program officer. The president would call to ensure that we prioritize the three counties of the business.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. My last question before we go to our audience for a question. As you know, DeKalb County, my district, District 3, we are in the top 5 for COVID cases, 3, 2, and 3, 4. And you all have stated clearly you have 90 days, but in those 90 days, you can be a catalyst and a convener, because I also serve on a stakeholders group for Operation Warp Speed. I'm the first vice president of NACO, which is the National Association of Counties. I'll be incoming president next year in Austin, Texas. So serving on a national level, I get to work on advocacy on the federal level. But let's talk about healthcare. We're doing a lot of testing with Oakhurst Medical Center. They're building a $15 million new health clinic right here on Candler Road. We have Southside Health Clinic on Gresham Road. We have gotten Grady to locate their hospital, the clinic, on Memorial Drive in the area. So talk about prevention in healthcare and the vaccine, because one of the things I brought up with the stakeholders group is about trust. If you don't have it, if you can give me a press release, you can talk to me all day long, but if the waiter and the waitress don't feel like the vaccine is going to work, then you can have the best vaccine in the world, but nobody's taking it. And I'm talking about our essential workers and folks that are connected. Talk about in your 90 days, because they look like there will be a vaccine that may come out. And if not, the message around COVID and testing, and I have a 30% uninsured rate in my district. Out of 150,000 people, that's a lot of people. And if you add District 5, because my district is split, I'm in District 4, but I got part of 5 is, Congressional 5 is on the other side. But I'm going to start with you, Mr. Franklin, 2 minutes. Talk about what you would do as a catalyst and convener around healthcare, around prevention and intervention, and mixing in COVID and uninsured. How would you help us to alleviate some of these issues?
Well, thank you again. And I remind us all that the focus is on appropriations, oversight, and holding members of this government accountable and speaking to the national crisis. Clearly, part of the national crisis is a crisis of trust and a crisis of confidence in our leadership. Our crisis of leadership comes to the state level with a governor who has been exceedingly disappointing. Even the White House coronavirus task force wrapped his knuckles and scolded him for poor leadership. Of the 4 categories in the national map of how COVID is evolving, from trending better to stable to trending poorly, and finally, uncontrolled spread. Georgia is in an uncontrolled spread location. This is embarrassing to have the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So on day one, I would call Dr. Redfield and mobilize the resources. I've been in conversation with the leaders there. The nation should be very worried about what's happening to CDC. And look at today's announcement from Secretary of HHS Azar. He's now demanding that all reporting from the 27 agencies that report to HHS must clear all reports and research findings through his office. And already, again, professionals and whistleblowers are starting to talk. So we need to protect and unleash the CDC, because unless people trust the health information, we will continue to perpetuate a downward spiral in our health and our economy.
Thank you. Thank you, good sir. Our next candidate, Kwanzaa Hall.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I'm a COVID survivor. And when I had coronavirus, God really got my attention. I didn't expect to be shifting my life to offer myself back to public service, but I felt there was a lack of leadership locally, nationally, for sure. Around this, locally, we just don't have the connectivity. So it's not a fault of anyone, but nationally, it's definitely a failure point. And so what I'm offering, and I suggested it earlier, is a COVID innovation zone. We take the lemons that have been thrown at our country and we turn it into lemonade, and District 5 would be ground zero for the innovation, reinventing ourselves around solutions for this pandemic and those to come in the future, because there are other ones that are popping up around the country and around the world that will continue to come with us. Working with our immigrant partners, there's quite a number of other countries that are innovating around coronavirus and addressing these problems. They have access to PPE, access to innovation in testing, contact tracing, reaching out to all of the colleges that you mentioned, like Georgia Tech, the AU Center, the HBCUs, Emory, to use them all, Clayton State, to use them as a part of a working group, a cluster effect around innovation with coronavirus. Of course, our healthcare system still needs to be overhauled. Obamacare has been kind of gutted. So we've got to also put pressure on the leaders in the state to make sure that we can pull some of those dollars down and have them redirected and reapplied by municipalities and counties throughout our district. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Barrington Martin II.
Yes, sir. Once again, modern day solutions for modern day problems. We have to stop putting the proverbial Band-Aid on the gunshot wound, and we have to treat the gunshot wound. What I mean by this is we've understood that our healthcare system was failing us, but the pandemic has shown us the depth in which it is failing. Within a developed nation that's considered the richest nation on earth, it's inconceivable that healthcare is unaffordable and sometimes inaccessible by people of this nation. To give you another stat that most people don't know, just last month, Newsweek polled and found out that 87% of Americans agree with some type of Medicare for all plan. Now I get it, that may be expensive, it may be an overhaul on the budget, but at the very least, with the United States being the developed nation, the most abundant nation that it is, we need universal basic healthcare services. And so these basics, in my opinion, these basic healthcare practices should be free and readily accessible to the public. A free public option is needed and not tethered to employment. That way, companies can keep their capitalistic nature of competing against each other, but at the same time, the basis should not be the receiving and capital, but the basis of our healthcare should be taking care of our citizens. And this not only include providing methods that will take care of them, but also preventative care measures as well. I want to allow the insurance companies to compete with each other by substantially lowering their prices, but I think that we should also establish the development of generic drugs within the United States to greatly drive down drug prices. At the end of the day, the people deserve healthcare, and I believe that it is inherently a human right. But at the same time, companies must go on, but they should not overcharge the people in regards to something that they need for their lives to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stephen Muhammad.
Yes, sir. Well, to answer your question, I think from what you said is that we would have to convene respected Black scientists, doctors, physicians who the Black community respect. Your district is majority African American, and they do not trust the CDC, Trump, and vaccines. They trust none of them. They don't trust them with their health because of so many problems in the past with us as African Americans. So you'd have to get some people that they trust. Maybe do it under the banner of Howard University Medical School and Morehouse Medical School, and convene these Black doctors and physicians that they could then look at the vaccine once it comes out. And then they would have to then tell us, is this safe? We've looked into it. We've checked the chemical compounds in it. Now it's safe for you to take. If we don't do that, they're not taking the vaccine. I hear it in the streets. They say, I'm not going to be the first. I'll wait and see what it does to someone else, because all of them have seen too many reports on autism and people dying with vaccines and the Tuskegee experiment, and they just don't trust it. So first we got to build up some trust. And that could only be done by us talking to us. That's you and doctors, and those who they trust and say, now this is safe, you can take it. If not, they're not going to take it. And once we do that and we galvanize that group of people, then we can work toward mitigating this situation within the African-American community. But until then, I think mask, social distancing, and not gathering in large crowds is going to have to do until we get a better way to trust what's coming from the medical community.
Thank you so much, Chase Oliver.
So when I hear this talk of lack of trust, it makes me think, yeah, a lot of times people do not trust government because government many times has actually done harm to people. So yeah, I would like to see that if more independent laboratories could do more studying beyond just having to trust only that that comes from the government and that information. But in regards to a vaccine, I would like to make sure that phase 3 trials have gone through and that we see proper channels to make sure that this vaccine is safe before we start giving it to people. And with that in mind, I would like to remind us that every person is essential, not just because of the work you do. All of us have an inherent human value and worth. Everyone is essential. Everyone's life is essential. Just because of what you do for a living doesn't make you more essential than other people. We are all essential people. With that in mind, I encourage everyone to get out. If you're out, wear a mask, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, socially distance from each other. These are easy steps that we can take to help fight this at the ground level as citizens. But I also want to talk about how, when we talk about healthcare, I'm a supporter of the Singapore healthcare model. If we could start hearing voices talking about things like Singapore healthcare model covers everyone, is about a quarter of the cost for GDP of the United States healthcare plan, and provides better health outcomes. These are ideas that you're not going to hear from the two parties because they already have special interests that have bought and paid the establishment. So no matter how progressive and how within your own party you're fighting for something, the leadership in the party will not let these ideas get out because they are already bought and paid for by giant corporate interests. This is why I say we need to move beyond the two-party system and hear voices from outside of that structure. But again, wear a mask, wash your hands, socially distance. Again, these are things that all of us can do to fight COVID at the ground level. But in order to get that trust, you're right, maybe we need to move beyond government and look to other institutions that are wise and have people who can help us determine what is the best healthcare decisions we need to make with regards to this pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mabel Thomas.
Thank you. First of all, I think that people throughout the 5th District need access to affordable health care. We know clearly that we need to deal with the pharmaceutical industry, which is out of control, lower costs on medical, healthcare, medical. We have to deal with surprise billing. You go to the hospital, you get a bill that's out of control. When you look at what's going on with the COVID, ain't nowhere in the world we can believe what's being said by our president. So surely what we need to do, Trump has to go because he has no interest in dealing with even the affordable healthcare. Just because Obama did it, he's trying to make sure he cut it and bare bone it. So even people who thought they had a chance would not have that chance. Also, one of the big issues, I represent at one point the whole entire AU Center. Now I represent Morris Brown, Georgia Tech, and Morehouse School of Medicine. Thereby, when I look at the cumulative, as well as I'm in the community of the Georgia Dome. So I was just thinking about how much money that's been brought home. I'm sure if you add up the years I've been in office, and that probably more than 50, more than maybe at least 25 billion has come in place, because one thing I can do is I know how to get money into the budget, and it is a process. Also, what I want to say is that one of the biggest issues in America is Black women die 3 to 4 times more than any other women at childbirth. We were able to put in money, $21 million in the budget, to be able to move Medicaid postpartum from 2 months to 6, literally saving Black women's lives and Black families. Also, we gave $500,000 to Morehouse School of Medicine for them to do research, training, and community engagement. So I'm already on the ground doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Keisha Waits.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for the question. I want to echo the sentiments of my colleague this evening that many times we need common sense solutions. And I love the idea of washing your hands and wearing a mask. There's been so much opposition to that, which I don't necessarily understand. But I also want to highlight something that all of my colleagues have talked about tonight, and that is trust. Whether we find a vaccine for COVID-19 or not, many of our community members are not going to take it because the federal government, specifically the American federal government, has proven that oftentimes it cannot be trusted. And we see examples of that with the Tuskegee Airmen and a number of other communities, the Indian community that's also been ravaged based on some of the decisions that we have seen in this country. But I also want to do this. I think it's important that we note that no one is going to fill the shoes of the late Congressman John Lewis, none of us. However, we also cannot intellectualize his legacy. But I do believe it's important that we hit the ground running regarding solutions. There are only 2 people in this race that actually have state legislative policy experience that I believe will be essential to serving in a short interim period of time. I think that we can ensure that we get information, accurate information out to the district, specifically DeKalb County residents, as well as the 5th District. I think it's important that we understand that legislation and policy is vetted in a committee. And so therefore, working with the Health and Human Services Committee to ensure that the needs of our community, specific to what we need, is highlighted there. And then finally, I am a trained crisis manager. I have spent the last decade traveling across the United States, serving members of Congress in 38 states. Dealing with some of the issues that we see right now, such as H1N1, BP oil spill, Hurricane Maria, as well as Hurricane Ike. So I think it's imperative that we ensure that we have access to accurate information, and we'll get more into this conversation.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to our speed round. We're going to our audience, and Mr. Craig, who's a graduate of Southwest DeKalb High School and also a missionary, been with me since he was 10 years old. So he's gonna, do we have any questions? And then Candace, I just want you to do a 1-minute response. Any questions from the audience? I'm gonna take 1 or 2 questions.
So yes, question from Paula Tate. How do you plan to stand out for the remaining 90 days of Congressman Lewis's term? And what will be up for vote when you get there?
1 minute, we'll start at the Miss Keisha Waits.
Awesome, thank you so much. Well, a couple things. As I've already indicated earlier, that Congress is currently in session voting on bills that we care about right now. So obviously negotiating and ensuring that our community has access to COVID relief funds. That also means ensuring that all 3 counties have access to the dollars we deserve. That's DeKalb, Fulton, as well as Clayton County. In addition to that, I think it's important, and my colleague highlighted, that we must have existing relationships at the state and federal level in terms of how do we stand out. Well, 1, you must know who the members are. You must know who the players are who will be making the necessary decisions. And I also think it's important to note that I have not taken special interest money. I probably have raised the least amount of money in this campaign, but I think my legislative track record speaks for itself in terms of fighting for working families as well as small business owners. And it is my prayer and hope that you will give me this opportunity to do this for you in Washington.
All right, Abel Mabel Thomas, 1 minute.
Right. One of the things I want to say is that I was the only elected official to endorse John Lewis when he ran in 1986 and took the heat for it. I also would like to say that when you look about what can be done, you can make impact, and the way you'll stand out is your reputation will precede you. I have a reputation that precedes me based upon the fact that I've been out here for many years, not getting the credit per se, but this race has given me a chance to sort of speak about some of the things I've done. I think that we're going to have to make sure that people get information from the federal government down to the people so the people can make impact with that as well. I think when you look at the fullness of my career, that I would stand out because when I walk in the door, you couldn't be Abel Mabel Thomas all these years and have not done anything. So I believe I'm the most qualified to move fast day one to make sure that we stop this taxation without representation, and to make sure the 5th District is strong, and to make sure that Clayton also gets their fair share as well.
Thank you. Chase Oliver.
Okay, so first off, right off the top, I want to say I was 1 year old when John Lewis first ran in 1986, so I did not have a chance to endorse the man. I don't even think Barrington was born yet. But let's talk about what we can do when we're in Washington. First off, if I'm elected outside of the 2-party system. That is going to make waves. That will make headlines, and I will use those headlines to push for change like ending qualified immunity, HR 7085. It's been in the Congress for 106 days now and has not been taken up by the party establishment. on day one. When I'm sworn in, the first thing I'm going to say to Nancy Pelosi is thank you for swearing me in. Now let's get to work on HR 7085. We need to vote on it right now. It's something that does not need to wait. George Floyd's murder was months ago, and this is something that can be done to help provide justice when law enforcement does wrong to people. When we have a systemically racist police and court system, we need to take action. And on day one, I will be very loud and very vocal about the need to get HR 7085 passed and to also pass the Voting Rights Act. But in addition, let's make it a 50 states Voting Rights Act. That's an amendment we can put on so that every state can fight against voter disenfranchisement. Let's get it done. Let's get to work.
All right, Mr. Stephen Muhammad.
Yes, sir. Well, from day one, and when I get elected, sort of like my colleague just stated, as an independent and Stephen Mohammed, they're going to look and see, there he is. That's him. It's sort of like everyone else who's come from a background similar to mine. They've gotten a lot of attention. Some of it has been negative, but mine would come in on a positive note because I would have ideas that would create change, that would create a new reality. So from day one, when I walk through the door, there he is. They're going to look, they're going to address me. They're going to want to sit down and talk to me to see what I'm about, because the curiosity of this intriguing person who's walking through the door, I will get the attention that I need to turn it into a positive to make it work for the 5th District.
Thank you. Barrington Martin II.
Yes, sir. I think that Congress needs a fresh dose of reality and a fresh dose of the truth. The two-party duopoly has for far too long monopolized the power away from the people. It's too much of a us versus them mentality within the House, between the Democrats and the Republicans, and they need a fresh dose of reality, and that is through the youth. That is through understanding and conveying the message that the people are fed up and the people deserve more. So right out the gate, I'm pushing the legislation that matters more, and that is COVID relief. That is the amount of the money that needs to be reinserted right back into the people's pockets. People also need universal health care with a free option. I think that's very important to push these two initiatives, because not only are people having problems right now, but if we don't get things right now, the issues on the horizon will be much worse than what we're dealing with right now. So I think that just providing the truth, the power, honesty that Congress needs, as well as pushing forward methods of legislation through universal guaranteed income, universal health care, I'll be doing the United States citizens a service. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Kwanzaa Hall.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, 90 days is a short period of time, but it's a great period of time if you have a track record for getting things done. You know how to navigate, as I've done as a council member for 15 years, ably elected. I can do the same thing in Congress. I mentioned, number one, leadership on coronavirus. Number two, ensuring that we don't have any more voter suppression. Number three, the significant budget votes. Number four, justice reform, and making sure that we take out qualified immunity and we have insurance on these officers and departments. Safe banking for the cannabis industry, ensuring that we pass the MORE Act, not only to make it legal, but number two, to make sure that we have expungement of all records across the board for anyone who was impacted by the war on drugs, assuming it was a nonviolent offense. Lastly, and most importantly, to stand up to Donald Trump, go straight to him and let him know that when he spoke about John Lewis, there's some unfinished business in District 5 when he said we have infrastructure problems. Yes, we do. The $4 trillion in the infrastructure bank need to be piloted in District 5 in John Lewis's honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robert Franklin.
3 pieces of legislation that will need immediate attention, no matter how many days the next congressperson is present. Number one, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act must be passed. It's on the Senate calendar now. Number two, the HEROES Act, which is 5.0 in the CARES rollout. So this is the important $3 trillion bill that Nancy Pelosi and other Democrats have brought forward. The important thing there is it repeals Donald Trump's immoral tax cut. It was a tax giveaway of $135 billion to people who are already wealthy, removing that and focusing on the needs of Clayton County, DeKalb County, and Fulton County. Let's not forget Congress is a busy place of big egos. There will need to be a person who can make space there. And as a former president of Morehouse College, they will hear my voice.
Thank you so much. Next question, Mr. Craig.
Okay. Let's see here. All right, next question is, let's see. Here's the question. Oh, here it is. What are your thoughts about replacing Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg now or after the election?
All right, we'll start with Mr. Franklin, Robert Franklin. 1 minute, please.
I want to underscore the importance of acknowledging what is an extraordinary legal and moral voice Justice Ginsburg represents. She spoke out for the underdogs and for those who were marginalized at times when she didn't have to. And so I think it's unconscionable that this president did not allow 24 hours to pass from shifting to express mourning and respect for Justice Ginsburg to suddenly talking about her replacement and ultimately about his reelection efforts. He should be challenged, he should be embarrassed, and good Republicans cannot follow this. We are trading American values for raw lust for power. And I believe God Almighty will judge such bad behavior.
Thank you. Ms. Kwanzaa Hall, candidate. We can't hear Sean.
You're muffled. Could you try to speak closer to the mic?
I'm sorry. Unfortunately for the body politic, this is the norm. These kinds of things happen. The typical response when a position is lost and the opposite party is in control, they do the exact opposite and appoint a person who is counter to the position that was lost. So we have to expect that more than likely he will be appointing a person who does not agree with the ideals that we all stand for. That's even more the reason why we need to elect a person who can campaign hard immediately after September 29th, win that election without a runoff, and raise the requisite funds to help win Georgia and raise the number of voters under 50 to be excited in this race and make sure that they turn out and really turn up to ensure that we win in Georgia so Biden and Harris can take over the White House and we can change this country back, or actually for the better, not back to, but for the better for all.
Thank you so much. Barrington Martin II.
Thank you. The issue with Justice Ginsburg's replacement is that it goes back to me talking about the two-party duopoly and the monopolization of power that is removed away from the people, because both of the parties are playing politics and are playing up this us versus them mentality that oftentimes leaves us at the brunt end of the stick. This is why it's important to talk about modern day solutions for modern day problems. And it's very important for us to move past this archaic, outdated framework of politics. And what I mean by that is, it's about time to start talking about term limits. I have a distinct belief that no one should be a lifetime appointment, because you run into issues such as this. Because our Senate is GOP led, it's unfortunate that, that they're playing politics and the president is going to select someone. But I think that it's time for us to ensure that the Democrats win the Senate this election. But more than anything, we have to go back and readdress what our democracy really means, and if freedom is really freedom the way we think it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Stephen Muhammad.
Yes, sir. Well, it goes back to whoever's in power is going to do what they want to do. I felt I didn't have the ear of the president. I would have told President Obama, appoint him, put him in, because they would do the same thing. I don't care what kind of great lofty platitudes they're giving you, they're lying. They're going to do what they want to do. That's just the way it is. When you in power, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, it never will. We learned that from Frederick Douglass 100+ years ago. So we know that when you're operating, you have to operate from that position. If you're in power, you have to do what it takes to make sure that your constituents are taken care of. Now, if you come with anything else, your constituents will be left behind. And that's why the African-American community is always left behind, because we don't demand nothing from the presidential candidates. We don't force them to do what we need them to do. And if we don't, we will always be behind the 8 ball. So right now, today, we need to make a change. Wherever you are, you need to do right by our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Chase Oliver.
So as for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, it is a terrible loss. She was a champion in the Supreme Court. She was a legend. But let's talk about, her replacement. So, I think if we need to talk, I like to talk about people who stick to their word. I like to believe that people can stick to their word. And with that in mind, Senator Lindsey Graham last year, he didn't give President Obama a chance to put up a Supreme Court justice because he said, the people should decide. And he said himself in 2018 that if it comes around at the end of Donald Trump's term and there's a Supreme Court justice open and the primary process has already begun, we should wait for the next president. Now, can the Senate meet and appoint someone? Can the president appoint somebody and have the Senate vote on it? Yes, they can. They have every right to. But if they believe to stick to their word, they need to do what Lindsey Graham said as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee in 2016. They need to wait and let the people decide. Chuck Grassley needs to do the same thing. If elected, I will make sure that if they don't do this, I call them a liar to their face because they're a liar. They lied to us. They took their word and showed that it's not worth anything. So if people are going to lie, we need to call them out for it. But we need to be demanding that we wait until after the election and let the people decide.
All right. Ms. Mabel Thomas.
I think it's no small matter that the president is moving forward and disrespecting a great legend, but not just a legend, but somebody who really believed in the people and fought for women's rights. That's why I want to take that time in the beginning before I start, because I understand the power of the women and the power of the woman vote as well. I think that really when you look at what's going on in this Congress, it should energize us to go to the polls at a greater number for the Biden-Harris ticket. Kamala was my first choice, and so I'm honored to at least get back to be my first choice. Now maybe the second, but she still is a hardworking senator that has always tried to make a difference as well. So I think it should definitely be done after the election. But if he moves forward, we should not just say he's a liar and let it go. We need to fight him, which means the way we can fight him is with our votes. Fight Trump. Vote Biden candidate.
All right. Our next on is Ms. Keisha Waits.
Okay, so one, I want to go on record and say I am a proud progressive Democrat. But yes, the loss of the Supreme Court justice is certainly devastating for one, women's equality, as well as for the social justice movement. I think it's important that we work to flip the US Senate at the federal level, but also this is an opportunity to also talk about what's happening right here in Georgia. I think with the recent challenges we've had here in our own backyard, it highlights the fact that we've got to start paying attention to local judicial races, the attorney general's races. So those are things that have a direct impact on our communities right here at the local level. So certainly her loss is magnanimous. I do agree with my colleague that Republicans will be moving expeditiously to appoint someone. And I think now more than ever, this should motivate all of us who are Democrats, proud Democrats, to go on record and to get out to work to elect the president who is seriously working for his business.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, that concludes our audience. And now we'll go to our closing statements. And I'm the moderator, so I can pick whoever I want to start. So I'll go first with, let me see, Barrington Martin II. 2 minutes, closing.
Sorry, thank you, Commissioner Johnson, to allow me to be able to speak to everyone about my platform. And while I'm not only the best choice for this seat, but the right choice. My opposition told you about the experiences they've had. They told you about the connections they had as well. They couldn't tell you where they were on June 9, 2020 during the primary where I stood toe-to-toe against an icon and earned 20,096 votes. I had the courage to do what none other of my opponents wanted to do. Where were they? Where are they here now? They told you about all the things they accomplished within their career, but they didn't tell you why the problems of our district continues to persist and sometimes worsen, and why the people that look like all of us suffer the most within this district. You all can choose the way that we've been going, the way they will offer you, the same way that has not merited the changes that we've all been entitled to, or you can choose the new way, the way that empowers you. the way that gives you the freedom to finally assert yourselves the way you deserve, the way I've been offering since June 9th, 2020, a bailout for you, the people's bailout. Vote for one of your own. I'm returning the power to where it always belonged, to you, the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we'll go to Mr. Stephen Muhammad.
Well, I feel that I'm here today to present to you a new reality, present to everyone that's within the sound of my voice, because we need a change. We need a change in politics. All of us sit at home and we elect people, we go to the polls, and we're dissatisfied with their performance. Now, sometimes it's beyond their control. Other times they just go along to get along. So we need to elect public officials, public servants who will go out there and represent our interests. Because we all vote our own self-interest, but it doesn't ever seem to come into manifestation because those who we elect don't do it. So let's create a new reality. Let's work on criminal justice reform. Let's work on affordable housing. Let's work on ending destructive gentrification. Let's work on small business loans and ending credit redlining. Those kind of things that affect the everyday man and woman that's on the front line. Those are the things that I would like to do. I would also like to just say that I am the best candidate for you because I've been on the front line. I understand the needs of the people who every day are out here going to work, driving their cars, stuck in traffic, buying lunch, doing those everyday things, and they get left behind. And they see themselves slipping further and further behind with increased mortgages, increased rent prices, and just not getting treated fairly. Mistreatment by the police and just mistreatment by their elected officials that when they call them, they don't get a return phone call. They ask them to fix a pothole in front of their house. That just goes on and on and on. So what I'm asking you to do is go to www.muhammadforcongress.org. Look at our platform. Look at what we've done in the past. Look at what we plan to do in the future and vote for Muhammad, a name you can trust, someone that you know you've seen every day. I didn't have to get elected to office to be a part of public service. I've been there since the beginning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidate Chase Oliver.
Thank you for having me, Commissioner Johnson, and thanks to all those who are out there listening to all of our candidates and those who are getting out to vote. My platform is focused on more choices and more voices. We need more choices in the ballot and more voices in our politics. That's why that's why I'm fighting for things like ending qualified immunity for law enforcement, so police can be held accountable when they do wrong by people. That's why I fight to end no-knock raids, because Breonna Taylor is dead now because of no-knock raids, and we need to end them. I'm fighting to end police militarization because we don't need armored vehicles and tear gas in our streets. I'm fighting to end cash bail because right now there are 500,000 Americans in jail who are there only for the fact that they cannot afford bail. They have never been convicted of a crime. That's two-tier justice, one for the rich and one for the poor. I'm fighting to end the war on drugs and redirect the idea that addiction is a medical crisis, not a law enforcement issue. I'm fighting for each and every person in the 5th District. I love this city of Atlanta. I love this district. I've lived here for the last 12 years, and I love it. And I am a proud member of our LGBTQ community. And as a libertarian, I question government, and I want to hold government accountable. And as an LGBT American, I remember that Stonewall, the event that sparked the modern LGBT rights movement, was an action against government oppression. And that's what I seek to fight. I want each and every one of you to harness the liberty within yourself and to be the best you can be. And that's what we need with honest government. So I'm fighting for each and every person in this 5th District so that we can live more free and set our world free in our lifetime. Again, thanks to all the candidates and thanks to everyone who gets out to vote, because your vote is your power. You have the power, not government. Thank you.
All right, Robert Franklin.
Thank you. I'm Robert Franklin, and I'd like the privilege of serving the remaining days of John Lewis's term. I spent many hours with John Lewis in his office talking about love and power and justice and practical details of legislation that were so important to him. But above all, we can't legislate our way out of the crisis in America. We can't make our way out of the crisis. We need vision, moral vision. We need leadership, moral leadership to help us through this fog. Congress is a big, busy place with big egos. We need people who brings a certain stature and presence so that 5th District does not get disrespected. the 5th District gets heard at the end of the day. As you see, many fine people are running for this seat to replace John Lewis, but I believe I'm the most compelling candidate, most compelling, because when you think about it, if there's not a decisive win on September 29th, none of us wins, not a candidate, not the people of the 5th District, because a runoff election would be scheduled for December 1st, just days before Congress adjourns. So I urge you to remember that when you go to the polls, vote for Robert Franklin, top of the ballot, so that you can send someone to Congress who has stature, presence, and voice, a moral voice that will be heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we'll go to Kwanzaa Hall.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I want to start by saying I definitely would like to have your endorsement, sir, because your support would ensure that we win this race without a runoff. And the same, I would say, to all of the citizens of District 3. I'm Kwanzaa Hall again, and I'm running for Congress in this special election to fill the remainder of Congressman Lewis's term. We need a leader to stand in the gap, someone who can be a bridge between the legacy of the late, great Congressman John Lewis and the next generation of leaders of the 5th District. As I mentioned, John Lewis was a neighbor and dear friend to me and my family. He and his late wife, Lillian, mentored me in high school, college, and throughout my 15 years serving on the Atlanta School Board and Atlanta City Council. So for me, serving the remainder of his term in Congress is not an opportunity to start building a political resume or to place a capstone on the end of my career. This is my personal obligation to continue the justice leadership in the 5th Congressional District. I will continue the District 5 legacy of being a voice of the voiceless, ensuring that our democratic process remains just and fair, offering leadership that helps our country get a handle on the COVID crisis, and holding Donald Trump accountable. If you vote early over the next week, we can win this race without a runoff. And I can hit the ground running, ensuring that we have a leader who can bridge the gap as we desperately need in Washington. I'm Kwanzaa Hall, and I need your support. I need your vote. Check me out, www.kwanzaahall.com. I'm on all social media platforms. Looking forward to connecting with you. Let me know that you voted for me, and I'll see you at the polls. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Keisha Waits.
Thank you so much to our host tonight. I want to close by saying that, one, I am a woman of faith. So every single thing that I do in my life is guided by a certain set of principles. But I also think it's important to note that we don't need any more ivory tower politics. We don't need any more dynamics where you have to reach out to a person's secretary or assistant to get anything done. Secondly, we cannot intellectualize the congressman's legacy. I think you've seen individuals who've tried to do that. Finally, there are a number of families that have not received any resources whatsoever in the aftermath of COVID-19. There are a number of small business owners who have not received any PPP funding to help them with their struggling small businesses. It is necessary that the congressman's successor embody his same spirit of equity as well as fairness and service. And I think it's important that the next person that we elect to this seat have an interest in working families and that they be judged based upon what it is that they have already done. Lastly, in closing, if you're looking for a location to go and early advance vote, if you text the number 22454 to put the word Fulton in that to 22454, it will send all of your early advance locations, and including if you text the word DeKalb to 22454, it will also send you your early advance locations, and Clayton County the same. I look forward to serving. I thank you so much for the opportunity to exchange ideas tonight, and I look forward to supporting each and every one of you and hopefully advocating for you in Washington, D.C. I am Keisha Waits, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Mabel Thomas.
At some point in the 5th District, it should come down to a thing called the people who have done the work. The people who have done the work should be rewarded for the work. It's very interesting to me, the fact that it's kind of interesting that I'm one of the few people that's been on the ground, have relationship with most of the people that's running, some relationship. And at the same time, it's like they trying to be mad at the fact that had a great career. That's what you do. I'm not the person y'all know that don't get back with people. My brand is called availability. My brand is called results. My brand is called taking care of the little man. Yet people are talking about like no politicians ever do anything good. So what it does, it makes other young people who come behind me think that really it don't matter because you don't have to do anything because people just gonna keep saying the same thing. I submit to you, I stand a cut above most elected officials in the city of Atlanta. And because, why? Because I'm always there for the people. Don't hate me because I'm good. Don't keep trying to play like you good. Why don't you want a person that has experience? I mean, it's crazy to go to Congress. I ain't talking about going to school board, city council. Send somebody that has leadership skills, somebody who don't just give lip service, but somebody who does community service. It's a legacy seat. It is a big deal. Therefore, you need to vote for Abel Mabel, who has worked and marched with the late Congressman John Lewis to serve those in need now and the generations to come. There's nobody that's passed more legislation, nobody been on the ground longer in terms of helping people, live in the same house, and I'm not pretending I know John Lewis. I actually know John Lewis. And the reason I said that I was the person that voted for him, Chase, was only because I'm letting you know that when he ran, everybody said they wasn't for him, but now he's dead, everybody's acting like they was with him.
All right.
They're not telling the truth.
Thank y'all so much. I wish I could give y'all, I'm gonna give you one of these type of hand claps. I just want to thank all of the Congressional 5 rate folks who are running. District 3 is about linking, leveraging, and empowering. Linking our folks to resources, leveraging public-private partnerships, and empowering through education. So if you want to win the Congressional District 5 seat, you got to come through District 3. You got to come through DeKalb. That means you better be on that corner waving on Candler, Glenwood, Gresham, Moreland Avenue, 285. So when I drive past it the next week or so, I want to see you waving and waving like you just don't care. Throw your hands in the air and doing it. And so you all can make a difference because DeKalb County is a voice that needs to be reckoned with. We want to be represented. We want folks in there that's going to speak for us, that represents the grassroots and the grass tops, but really making a difference for everyday folks in our community. So I'm proud of all of you all. You articulated well, you represent well. And so you all got to commit to me. Once one of y'all win, you're going to come back and do a town hall meeting. Just shake your head. You'll do a town hall meeting with me in 90 days because you still can get something done with that little time. I've seen Rosa Parks. I've seen Gandhi. I've seen Martin Luther King. Didn't have a lot of money and all that, but they had influence. We all have influence. And so we got to make a difference. So I'm proud of you all and thank the folks from District 3 who participated. This will be recorded and it will be sent out. And so everybody can see it up until September 29th, because I want our folks to be empowered. And I want y'all to keep running and keep the people first. Always keep the people first.
Yes, sir.
Never, ever forget about the people. Man, you don't forget about them, they won't forget about you. My grandmother taught me a long time ago. She said, all birds got to come down to eat. That means no how you get. You got to come on down. So don't never, ever forget anybody. And the other African proverb is, we make the path by walking it together. Whatever path comes up, we got to work together in this race and making sure our community is whole. So God bless you all. You all stay strong, be safe. And I'll see you sometime in District 3. Take it easy, everybody. And thank you, District 3 staff, LaShawn Atwater, Sean Craig, Brandon, Theron, all the folks who helped me to get this together. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Peace and love to all.
God bless.
Black Lives Matter.
Peace and love, y'all. Bye.